All right, everyone, thanks for joining us today. Today we have Rob Barlow from Tapestry that's going to be leading us in SOAR for your business continuity plan. So, Rob, take it from here.
Hey, morning, everybody. Hope you didn't party too hard last night. Thanks for coming to the session. So we're going to be talking about how you can add value to your business continuity plans, incident response, disaster recovery kind of things, leveraging Jamf Pro, Mac app installers, bunch of cool technology that Jamf's given us that you can take right out of the box. So again, I'm Rob Barlow. I'm the lead end user compute architect at Tapestry. We own a couple retail brands. And, this was something that we came up from a tabletop exercise that was going a different direction. We realized, with Zero Trust framework, how do you recover if that identity that you've made be the permanent thing in your organization is no longer available or has been compromised? When we started toying back with the ideas, again, with Zero Trust, that identity and SSO, whoever your IDP provider is you. And all your systems are connected to it, or at least you hope all your systems are connected to it with Zero Trust frameworks. That way, you're evaluating conditional access, getting into your core systems, everything else. So how do you recover in an instance like that? So this is kind of a choose your own adventure. Your organization is going to have different tolerances, budget, technical capabilities. We're going to walk through capabilities for any org size, what you can do right out of the box, what might take some engineering, and kind of go through a good, better, best situation. So some of your prereqs, this is JNUC, so I hope you all have Jamf Pro. You'll need a break glass account of some sort, which we'll walk through during the presentation, and should have your account exec. Tim's running around here with the mic somewhere on speed dial, so you can always reach out to them to get an assistance. Then there's some what we're going to call force multipliers. Zero-touch deployments through ADE. If you have Jamf Connect basic in your environment, it's great for password syncing across IDPs. And then managed Apple accounts or local account preparation. Again, this is a choose-your-own adventure. You can choose your layers and apply them as you need them. It's going to be what do you have resource-wise to throw out the engineering. So one of the first steps is having a conversation with your stakeholders. Usually leadership, your security teams, cyber, your identity teams, your IAM teams. You're going to need to know, what's the risk appetite for data loss? Because there's a couple ways you can go across this. We're calling it a kind of a soft transition or a hard transition. If you are in an incident response mode to some sort of breach or compromise, you may want to consider a return to service option. Otherwise, you can do a soft cutover using Jamf Connect, and we'll walk through that in a later slide. What's your budget? Do you want to just keep this in-house with your current line items, or do you want to get spend if you don't have Jamf Connect already, or another system you may want? You could leverage some automation through Azure, through AWS, a couple opportunities there, but you'll need to get alignment from, again, other stakeholders. And then do these scale with impact to your business? Again, if you're just having an outage, happens, Microsoft can go down, Ping, Okta can go down. If it's a short term, do you have one plan? If it's a long-term outage, or again, something incident response related, does your appetite for losing data scale? So again, you may need to provide a variety of plans for those different scenarios, and we'll walk through a couple things you can do here. So the first step that you're going to need to do is prepare a break glass. There's a couple ways to do it. Easy mode, first way, is have a local account in your JSS. It's not the best practice. It's usually basic auth versus the SSO integration you have today. But it can get you back in a pinch. Most security teams are not going to be happy about it, but if that's where your budget is and your capabilities are, it's one way in. Then second, you can do an API client. Scripting, set up the client role, give it permissions to create the account if you need it to, and then layering on top of that, instead of having a preset user account password, you can dynamically create that with the API role in the script. You can have it randomized. So again, nobody knows what that account is or that secret is, and that's one that will make your security team very happy. One way to do that keeping in mind that you're not going to have access to any of your systems integrated with SSO, is to, hate to say it, go back to a thumb drive. But you can run this from a personal device rather than your corporate devices, because that API script will already have everything it needs to connect. It'll have the API client in secret, however you want to secure that, and it'll give you the output right there. So again, you could give one to your CISO, you could give one to your ITSM leadership. As Mac admins, you guys should probably have one. Again, plug it in, run it from any device to get back into your environment and start cutting over or running your automations to cut over to another IDP. And again, you can also go IDP agnostic and do local accounts or Apple accounts with some of the new features. So step 2, prepare your failover environment. You can have this be as vanilla as you want or customized. So one of the first steps, kind of create an easy mode. We use sites as not geographical sites, but environments. So for example, we have an AWS one, we have a corporate, we have our Zoom rooms all in different sites. So we created a new site that is, our crisis management incident response site. Nice thing about that is everything's contained and it's separate from what we have scoped to our already deployed objects. Again, you can layer on this with a customized pre-stage with enrollment customization if you do have a secondary IDP. Let's say you're an Entra shop and you have a Google or an Okta environment. You could use one of those secondary ones in enrollment customization. You could link it with ABM if you wanted to with the tokens. That way, if you needed to, you could get access to your ABM environment and rescope all those devices over. So if you were doing a hard reset, you could run those return to service or EX commands, and those devices will go in through a completely new pre-stage without any, connection to your compromised or outage IDP. And then, again, layering on that, you can use Jamf Connect. And the great thing about Jamf Connect Basic is that you can have these pre-staged and ready and configured. So if you didn't have the appetite to lose data, but let's just say Microsoft's having an outage in an area, you could just move those devices over, either automated with a script or manually through the GUI, move them to this other site, reassign them. Your one Jamf Connect config is going to pop off immediately, and then the new one to your secondary IDP is going to come down. So the user doesn't really get interrupted. They may get a password sync notification depending on if you're federating between IDPs, et cetera. In this use case, I would suggest not doing that just because you want this separate from your primary IDP. But they'll get, if you're using the Jamf Sync menu bar item, they'll just get a little pop-up saying, your password doesn't match. They enter their new password, however you deliver that through automation, through email, et cetera. It'll cut right over, and there's backup to work without any interruption, at least with the systems that you have moved over, or at least locally. Again, we built this really in mind for some of our executive teams if there was something major going on in the world. And then quality of life improvements. Define what matters for your return to service. If this is going to be a short-term outage or a long-term outage, you want to be prepared and make it as seamless as possible for the end user experience. But again, this scales with your technological capabilities, your budget, your resources. One of the best things that Jamf has come out with in the last year, Mac app installers. I don't have to patch. Perfect example is if you're moving from Entra to Google, you can have all of the Google tools already in Jamf app installers, Google Chat, Google Hangouts, et cetera, assigned to that site. So when they switch over, those new tools come down automatically. You can build on that and build on installers for Microsoft, Okta, Slack, things like that, so that way you have communications back up and running. Next one, build out that zero touch with that pre-stage. We touched on that on an earlier slide, but the more seamless and less maintenance you need to do, the easier it is for you to cut over. And then finally, macOS Security Compliance Project, if you've implemented that, just announced JNUC. There's the compliance benchmarks and blueprints, which makes it a lot easier to harden that secondary environment. It's in the GUI now. You can click, or it will be in the GUI shortly. You can click, apply those benchmarks, whether you want to go, if this is an incident response, maybe you want CIS level 2 or a higher level CMMC. applied. You can have that already scoped to that environment. It's not doing anything on your production environment, but when you cut over, you get those extra protections. Prior to when I built this deck, you had to do that manually. And again, with Jamf announcing it, makes it even easier. Most important thing, because we all don't test in prod, make sure you run these annually. Work with your cyber teams, do it as a DR exercise. A couple low-risk moves you can do, as I mentioned, have your Jamf Connect config profiles. Just switch devices between sites. Make sure your app installers are coming down yearly. Make sure that there's been no major changes. You don't need to deploy a separate config profile with preferences because something changed on the back end. It's pretty light on maintenance, but you may need a certificate renewal. Test it, find out, see what you need. That's a low-risk way to test. Medium risk, lock yourself out. Turn off your SSO integration. Make sure your API script is working as it should. Nothing's changed there. Nobody rotated the keys on you. That's a key one to generate those accounts. Make sure those are still working yearly. And then high risk, run an actual DR exercise. Shut off SSO. Close out everything. Red team this and see if you can break it. Work on it yearly. Sign off on it. Your CISOs are going to love you, especially since we're leading this, and it's pretty customizable to whatever your appetite is. So with that, I'll open it up to Q&A.
Thank you, Rob. Just for questions, put your hand up, and we got to use the mic for people online, but any questions out there?
No Buellers today.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys very much. Rob will be sticking around. If you do have any questions that you want to ask privately, feel free to come up to him. And thank you for attending.